In this video, I will explain what is the difference between process patterns and form patterns, and how the process patterns are more difficult to detect and mostly missed by 99% of traders due to the ideologies and beliefs and the constant subjective meaning that the community of trading gives to the countless forms that appear randomly in the charts, and how by distinguishing the difference, your trading can become simple, objective, and repetitive to really develop skills. Stay with us. A pattern is what makes the world interpretable and what makes it make sense. Perceiving patterns is necessary to take effective action. Our brains, our senses, evolved mostly to find patterns that make survival and reproduction possible. Patterns are everywhere. Our daily experience of the world is full of patterns, shapes, processes, connections, similarities, and differences. We can find patterns in society, culture, thought. Concepts may also have patterns as well. Therefore, in trading, of course, it is necessary to find repetitive patterns to make money consistently and have simple rules that are based on these patterns that, when combined with equity management, we are more likely to make more money than what we lose. But it is important to understand that these patterns do not have to be form patterns, which are the main foundation of popular trading and that you can find in 99% of trading courses and websites. Although you hear about the language of price, volume, order flow, indicators, bank trading, etc., at the end, if they end up talking about a form pattern, the foundation is the same, and you will be doing the same because it creates the same psychological problems that come from trading under subjectivity. Because if you pay attention, all these ideologies, Elliott waves, price action, ABCDs, lead you to a form pattern. But the form makes you create a mental identification of permanence and fulfillment. But that is a recipe for frustration and suffering, because ultimately forms will always change because they mean one thing for some and other things to others. And basically, you will never know 100% if it is the same thing or not, due to subjectivity and lack of real information. Therefore, if form patterns were actually a language, as some people preach it, wouldn't you agree that once this language is learned, you should know 100% of the time that you are doing the same thing without having conflicts in the back of your head? Now, knowing that you are following the same processes does not mean that you will always have the same results, but it means that you really know objectively 100% of the time that you are trading based on the same and not based on something that looks the same. Recent studies in psychology have shown that people often perceive patterns where there are none. The brain automatically interprets random events as significant, and this tendency is called patternicity or apophenia. The natural tendency of seeing meaningful patterns where none exist as humans makes us vulnerable to what is known as eternalism, which means having a position that everything has a meaning. Does it happen to you that due to the narratives, the hypotheses based on past data, and the many forms and symbols given to price movement, when trying to trade, you are listening to many voices inside your head and also seeing different meanings each time the price moves, creating a mental conflict? Are you starting to realize how form patterns end up harming you mentally instead of benefiting you? But why do you still believe in them, and why are you still looking for them? Why the masses are more likely to pay more attention to this kind of information? One of the most recent discoveries in psychology is that we are more likely to like and believe in things that are easy to understand and associate. But in trading, this is what causes many problems for the person who wants to make money and unconsciously is carried away by popular wisdom. Naturally, we seek and we are attracted to things that are easy to understand and seem to require less mental processes, which affect the way the stimulus is judged. If there are fewer cognitive processes involved, the idea or experience that is exposed is easier for the mind. Stimuli that are easy to process are perceived as more familiar and visually clear, more enjoyable, more striking, and therefore more likely to be chosen. Also, they seem less risky, more attractive, and somewhat more real and more credible. But one of the most important trading aspects and mental liberation is the understanding that the price is formless and that it's the people who are giving symbols and meanings to forms. But trading is not about symbols and beliefs, but it's about becoming mentally disciplined to follow repetitive processes like manipulation, which I will explain in another video. Here's where I want you to start to be aware why it is easier for many to understand by shapes, patterns, indicators, and theories. And at the same time, others find it easier to teach their ideas and hypotheses of the market through form patterns, indicators, and theories, and not necessarily because this is an effective way, but because it is the easiest to explain and the easiest to believe. What makes something easy to process is familiarization. The more often we see something, the more familiar it becomes and easier to process when seeing it in the future. Therefore, when you start in this business, it is easier to accept what everyone says because it's mentioned and preached everywhere. For our memory, it is easier to detect and store form patterns, and even more when these patterns contain symmetry. Why people see faces in nature and interpret stains on windows as human figures, hear voices in random sounds generated by electronic devices, or find conspiracy theories in the news or unexpected events? It is because of the primacy effect, in which our brain is prepared to interpret the stimuli according to an expected model or mental structure already laid out. UFO seekers see faces on Mars, religious see the Virgin Mary on the wall of a building, the paranormalists hear voices of dead people on the radio static, and here in trading, the trader sees shapes, forms, patterns, and seeks symmetry and meanings where there's no real information, and he cannot prove that one thing happens because of the other. Price goes up and goes down. It only does two things. Therefore, it is easy to assign correlation and causation to forms and patterns because several times these will work, but highly randomly. Because behind the price movements, the individual actions and agendas are random and unpredictable. But why people insist on giving meaning to what happens in the market with symmetry? Do you realize that the oversimplification of the popular wisdom always tells you about a bilateral symmetry as head and shoulders, U-turns, triangles, wicks, decision candles, indecision candles, waves, etc.? And the reason is that bilateral symmetry has always attracted us as humans and is the strongest predictor of beauty in basic shapes and patterns. Symmetry detection is the interpretation of the same things on both sides and all around. A recent discovery in psychology is that we are more likely to like and believe in things that are easy to find and easy to detect. Since narrating and creating ideas from the abstract perspective of forms is easier, you will find thousands of teachers and thousands of information that talk about the same subjectivity, without being aware that the price does the same thing, just goes up or goes down, and that this continuous movement has nothing to do with patterns or its derivatives ideas, but with many factors that are just invisible to all of us as retail traders. Remember that we are all dealing with two primary emotions, desire and fear. So there is always this state of alert, and in this state, when you think you have found something important, your brain struggles to rationalize an explanation. That's why you feel the need to go to the past to justify any pattern that you're detecting. You try to find out why that stimulus of the form feels important. But if you begin to be aware, you are not following current price due to specific and unconditional processes. But instead, you first have an emotion due to the stimulus, due to the form and symbol, which you are most of the time unconscious about. And then comes the rationalization to explain or justify the feeling of importance. But the feeling, if you begin to be aware, comes from a belief. I repeat, all kinds of forms gives a sense of permanence and fulfillment, of an ideology and belief, but that is the recipe for frustration and suffering, and therefore the inability to adapt and trade without emotions. Then the masses, when they are presented with things that seem easy from the perspective of forms and symbols, they easily fall into the idea that in order to be successful and profitable, they must learn all doctrines and ideologies that are preached popularly without being aware that they are getting sick. Getting sick, you might be wondering. People with schizophrenia overproduce dopamine, and dopamine makes everything seem so significant. This is why this mental problem causes people to see patterns even in random places and where there is no connection. They are constantly having thoughts and creating deceptive connections in their head. Have you felt this way? With all the respect these people deserve, have you lived with one or had a relationship with one of these persons? A person with this mental problem doesn't have a quality life. It's the same in trading. This approach of seeing and imagining things is not trading. Do you really think trading has to be that stressful? Do you think you can continue your journey as a trader like that in the long term? Understand that literally the trading and education industry have sickened you. You have been conditioned from the first day you became interested in this business to find meaning and rationalize in an environment you do not control and is highly random, rather than just act by specifics and simple processes that do not have to do with you. This mental disease has spread all over the trading industry and is one of the main reasons 98% of people fail in this business, because people are trying to find meaning all the time. And the medicine offered by most of the industry is not medicine but a painkiller that does not attack the real root of the problem, which is the belief that you know what is going on behind the charts. You must act with the left side of your brain and work with logic and not emotions. And to achieve this, you must trade without beliefs. I have marked a specific time, which is from 2 p.m. Eastern Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. All the red boxes that you will see while looking at the charts is the exact same time period. Just by itself, that will be a repetitive process pattern. This time period is usually the less volatile during the day. I have marked that time period, and let's observe what the price does after the 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Here you can see that the price went up and then went down. This was August 7th, 2016. August 9th, 2016, the price goes down and then goes up. Why this day and this day will be the same? Well, they wouldn't be the same if we see patterns we try to relate to waves or supports and resistance or candlestick formations, but they are the same in the fact that you have the same time period, the price went up and then went down. You have same time period, the price went down and then went up. They went opposite, but during the day, the whole price movement only had two directions. Now let's continue. This day, August 23rd, 2016, you have the same time period, the price goes up and then goes down. Then keep going on that direction. See, this day, August 23rd, 2016 is exactly the same process as August 7th, 2016. You have the same exact time period and then the price went up and then went down. What we are looking for is repetitive patterns. We're not looking for the holy grail, we're looking for repetitive patterns so we can act the same way and see the same thing over and over. As you can see, the price went up and then went down. Eventually this changed, The next day the price went down and then the price went up and then continue. This day, the 23rd, is the same as the 7th because the price goes up and the price goes down, or went up and then went down. Let's go to another day. September 1st, 2016, the price goes down and then goes up. Do you remember that we already saw this? But not with the same form, but it was the same process. September 1st, 2016 is exactly the same thing as August 9th, 2016. The price went down and then went up. Let's go back to September 1st. The price goes down and then goes up. As you can see, the price followed the same process, but the forms were different. Here you have September 4th, 2016, the price goes up and then goes down. Remember August 7th, the price went up and then went down. Now you have September 6th, the price goes down and goes up. This day, September 6th, is the same as September 1st because the process that the price followed was that first it went down and then went up. The price went down and then went up. This is regardless of the forms, of the chart formations, even regardless of the time frames, because this time is exactly the same no matter if I see it from 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or an hour chart. Let's continue. We have another day, the same time period. The price goes up and then goes down. Isn't this day the same as September 9th, as September 4th, as August 23rd? Isn't the same in the process? The price went up and then went down. The price went up and then went down. See, we're not looking for how the market moved afterwards, what chart patterns and how long it took to follow or how long it took to stay in that direction. Really developing a skill is being able to see the same thing and act by the same things, because that's how you're going to develop skills. You're going to be concentrated, you're going to be focused, you're not going to be distracted by the hundreds and maybe thousands of things that can happen that you're hearing in your mind, because you're distracted by all these ideas and things that might happen, but in reality, price can only go up or can go down. Here, the same exact time period, the price goes down and then goes up. Here, the price goes down and then goes up. Price goes down and then goes up. See, this day, and this day are exactly the same. Not because they have the same forms. It doesn't even matter if the trend was down or up, or what I mean is the overall trend. At the end, in the process, they did the exact same thing. The price went down and then went up. See, here went down, went up, this retraced, but never came back down all the way below the first direction. Here you have another day, October 5th, the price went up and then went down. Do you remember this process, first going up and then going down regarding this time period? See, the form is different. The time it took to continue one direction or the other is different. That will always change. If we go to the US oil, you can see that we have the same process pattern. I have the same time period, and you can see that the price goes down and then goes up. If we go to another day that has the same time period, the price goes down and then goes up. Then the price goes down and then goes up. This day the price goes up and then goes down. This day and this day are the same, but they're not the same in patterns, are the same in the process pattern. In the form they are different, but in the process they're the same. The repetition of the process pattern is very different than that of the parts of the process, which in this case will be the formations, volume, speed, indicator signals, number of waves, etc. The parts of the process are unique because the process pattern is unique, since this has to do with the present time and not the past, because all the factors that move the price behind the charts are random and unique. But the process pattern will always be the same, even though the parts are different. This is just an example so you realize that the process patterns are objective, while form patterns are not. And besides, the process pattern will help you to develop real skills of trading execution and risk management, because you will be trading based on the exact same process. This is why the simple reality that price just goes up or down based on a specific process is hard to grasp for many people, due to the need to know what is going on behind the charts and the fear of losing that block you from seeing the things and processes that have always been there and that are not subjective. Do you want to continue creating stories and forms about why the price does this or does that? Or do you really want to trade by facts and unconditional processes, therefore developing real skills? If you want to train to learn to see the principles and process patterns that have always been there and really do the same thing all the time without conflicts in your head in order to develop real skills and not prejudices, visit our website Trading with Logic. You will no longer have to learn complicated subjective ideologies, theories, and ideas based on symbols and beliefs full of cognitive biases, but unconditional processes that happen all the time, no matter who you are, what you think you know, or what names you give to forms that appear in front of your chart again and again. Don't you think you should free yourself mentally from what 99% of people do? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. This is Luis Morelos, and remember, trade with logos, trade with logic. See you later.